Is Seraphim connected to UFO sightings in ancient texts? What if the blazing angels described in the Bible were actually the ancient UFOs we see today? Imagine for a moment that the fiery winged beings called the Seraphim, who have fascinated theologians and scholars for centuries, might not be purely symbolic figures, but something far more mysterious. Could these celestial beings, with their 6 wings and fiery presence, actually be ancient accounts of UFO sightings, misinterpreted through the lens of ancient spirituality? Throughout history, we've heard stories of strange objects in the sky, celestial chariots, and beings of light descending from the heavens. From the fiery seraphim in the Bible to UFO sightings in modern times, many people have wondered whether there might be a connection between these otherworldly encounters. Are these accounts simply symbolic, or could they hold a deeper, more universal truth about contact between humans and extraterrestrial life? In this video, we'll explore the possibility that the Seraphim, the divine beings described in the Bible, might not just be fiery angels as traditionally understood, but perhaps representations of UFOs, unidentified flying objects that have been seen throughout history. By diving into ancient scriptures, including the book of Isaiah, Ezekiel, and even the book of Enoch, we'll examine the startling similarities between the descriptions of celestial beings and modern UFO sightings. Could it be that the ancient world was witnessing extraterrestrial visits and interpreted them as divine or angelic encounters? And if so, does this mean that UFOs, far from being a modern phenomenon, have been a part of human history for millennia? Join us as we unravel this mind-boggling question and explore whether the Seraphim are more than just angels. Could they be the ancient UFOs that have been written about in sacred texts, waiting to be rediscovered? The Seraphim, fiery angels of the Bible. The Seraphim are one of the most intriguing celestial beings described in the Bible. They are often depicted as fiery, majestic beings surrounding the throne of God, perpetually worshipping and proclaiming His holiness. The term seraphim itself comes from the Hebrew word saraph, meaning to burn, which directly points to their fiery, blazing nature. In the book of Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah has a vision of God seated on His throne in the heavenly temple, surrounded by these magnificent beings. Isaiah describes them as having 6 wings, 2 to cover their faces, 2 to cover their feet, and 2 to fly with. Their primary purpose is to praise God continuously, declaring, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of His glory." The imagery of the fiery seraphim raises significant questions. These beings are not merely abstract representations of divine holiness. Their very appearance, burning with fire, yet undiminished, suggests a presence far beyond normal human understanding. Why fire? In ancient symbolism, fire is not just a destructive force, but also a powerful agent of purification, transformation, and divine presence. Fire, as seen in the Seraphim, was often used to represent God's intense glory, His overwhelming power, and His impenetrable nature. It is as though the Seraphim's fire is not just a physical phenomenon, but a manifestation of God's divine light, His purity, and His holiness. But this imagery of fire and light in the Seraphim has another interesting dimension. What if these descriptions were not just symbolic, but were instead a way of explaining something truly extraordinary, like a visitation from beings who traveled in flying crafts, known today as UFOs? After all, modern UFO sightings frequently report glowing, fiery lights in the sky, often associated with strange and inexplicable movements. Could the ancient Seraphim be describing an encounter with extraterrestrial beings, interpreted through the lens of divine symbolism? If we take a step back and allow ourselves to entertain this hypothesis, we start to see that there might be more to the story of the Seraphim than previously imagined. When ancient texts describe beings of light or fire, we often think of them as purely spiritual entities. However, many reports of modern UFOs describe strange, luminous lights or objects with erratic movement patterns, defying the laws of physics as we understand them. Could these phenomena be related? Could the fiery seraphim represent not just angels, but highly advanced beings traveling through the skies in technologies that seemed beyond the understanding of the ancient world? The seraphim's role in the vision of Isaiah. The seraphim appear in Isaiah 6, where the prophet has a vision of God seated on his throne. This vision is filled with intense sensory imagery. The temple is filled with smoke, the ground shakes, and the seraphim cry, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty." The intensity of the vision, coupled with the nature of the beings involved, conveys an overwhelming sense of the divine. These beings are not simply angels in the traditional sense. They represent the ultimate interaction between the human and divine realms. What makes the seraphim so intriguing is that their fiery, almost alien-like description could be a way to express an experience that was beyond the comprehension of the people of that time. Just as modern descriptions of UFO sightings often seem out of place or difficult to grasp, so too did the fiery seraphim exist as something far beyond the realm of earthly experience for Isaiah. Could the strange and powerful movement of these beings, combined with their fiery nature, be an ancient attempt to describe an extraterrestrial encounter, one that would be interpreted as a visitation from God? UFO sightings in ancient texts. Across various ancient civilizations, there are multiple accounts of strange phenomena in the sky, often interpreted as signs or messages from the divine. These phenomena, sometimes described as fiery chariots or beings of light, share remarkable similarities to the UFO sightings we hear about today. But why would ancient texts describe such unusual events in terms of divine visitation or angels descending from the heavens? Could it be that ancient civilizations were seeing something that defied explanation by the standards of their time, much as we might interpret similar phenomena today as UFOs? In the book of Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel has a vision that mirrors the descriptions of UFOs seen in the modern era. He speaks of a fiery chariot coming from the heavens, drawn by 4 living creatures. These creatures are described as having the appearance of humans, but with 4 faces, one of a man, one of a lion, one of an ox, and one of an eagle, and they move in all directions, unhindered by physical constraints. The chariot itself is described as having wheels within wheels, a feature that many UFO enthusiasts point to as a clear description of a flying craft. This account, often dubbed the Ezekiel's wheel, is one of the earliest recorded visions of a UFO-like phenomenon in ancient texts. The description of Ezekiel's vision contains all the hallmarks of what modern-day UFO sightings often include: glowing lights, erratic movement, and unusual shapes. Ezekiel's use of wheels within wheels could easily describe the rotating, multi-directional motion of a UFO, which some observers claim to have seen in modern encounters. But the question remains, were these sightings truly extraterrestrial, or were they purely symbolic and spiritual? In many cultures, including the Israelites, the heavens were seen as the realm of the divine, and any unusual phenomena in the sky were often interpreted as heavenly visitations. Ezekiel's vision, and others like it, could therefore be seen as spiritual experiences, but it's equally possible that these encounters were based on actual sightings of objects from beyond the earth. The Dead Sea Scrolls and Book of Enoch further support the idea that strange otherworldly beings were once believed to visit Earth. The Book of Enoch, in particular, offers vivid descriptions of heavenly chariots and beings of light descending to earth. These chariots, described as moving through the sky with fiery brightness, strongly resemble modern UFO reports. They were often linked to divine beings or angels, entities who, according to ancient belief systems, had the power to travel between the heavens and the earth. One key aspect that ties these ancient accounts together is the mystical connection between these visitations and the concept of divine or heavenly knowledge. In many of these texts, the appearance of these fiery chariots or celestial beings was seen as a way to impart wisdom, often relating to advanced technology or knowledge of the cosmos. This connects directly to the idea behind the ancient astronaut theory, which suggests that extraterrestrials visited early human civilizations, offering them knowledge and advanced technology. As we examine the Seraphim and the UFO sightings in ancient texts, we are faced with a challenging and fascinating question. Could these fiery celestial beings described in the Bible and other ancient scriptures be extraterrestrial visitors rather than purely symbolic angels? The similarities between the descriptions of UFOs in ancient texts and modern-day accounts are undeniable. Whether we view these ancient records as spiritual visions or as encounters with beings from other worlds, the connection between the fiery seraphim and UFO sightings becomes a captivating puzzle, one that bridges the gap between the spiritual and the extraterrestrial and opens the door to new ways of interpreting ancient wisdom. The fiery seraphim, the wheels within wheels, and the beings of light described in ancient scriptures might not just be symbolic images, but could represent encounters with beings who arrived in crafts that defied the limitations of their time. Could it be that the ancient world was witnessing UFOs just as we see them today, but interpreted them through the lens of divine visitations? This question, full of mystery and intrigue, beckons us to look deeper into the ancient records and explore the possibilities of what truly happened in the skies above us long ago. UFO sightings in ancient texts. Outside the Bible, while the book of Isaiah and Ezekiel provide compelling accounts of celestial beings and fiery chariots, they are not the only ancient texts that describe mysterious aerial phenomena. Other ancient records, including the Book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and even Sumerian and Egyptian texts, contain references to strange flying objects and luminous beings. These references often point to the belief that gods or divine messengers traveled from the heavens in crafts or chariots, often described in terms that are strikingly similar to modern UFO sightings. One of the most notable ancient texts that describes encounters with otherworldly beings is the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text that was excluded from the canonical Bible. The book details the descent of a group of angels, the Watchers, who descended to earth on heavenly chariots. They were said to bring knowledge to humanity, teaching forbidden secrets, including advanced technologies and mystical knowledge. The appearance of these fiery chariots and beings of light seems to mirror modern UFO reports, where glowing lights in the sky are often associated with extraterrestrial beings. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, the imagery of beings of light descending from the heavens is prevalent. These beings were sometimes described as shining with a brilliance that could only be attributed to divine power or celestial origin. What is particularly fascinating about these texts is that the description of these messengers aligns closely with descriptions of modern UFOs. Many UFO sightings, particularly those involving orbs or luminous balls of light, have been likened to these ancient descriptions of divine or celestial beings. The Sumerian and Egyptian texts provide even more fascinating parallels. In Sumerian mythology, there are mentions of beings known as the Anunnaki, who are said to have arrived from the sky in flying chariots. According to some interpretations, the Anunnaki are believed to be extraterrestrial visitors, who interacted with early human civilizations. The Egyptian hieroglyphs also depict flying objects and beams of light coming down from the sky, suggesting that ancient Egyptians may have had encounters with beings from other worlds, interpreting them as divine or celestial. UFO sightings, or at least their descriptions, appear not only in biblical texts, but also in a variety of cultures around the world. What all these accounts have in common is the presence of strange, glowing lights, chariots, or vehicles that come from the sky, often bringing divine knowledge or technology. The parallels between these ancient descriptions and modern UFO sightings are uncanny. In fact, many UFO researchers and enthusiasts believe that the phenomena described in these ancient texts could very well be the earliest records of alien encounters, though interpreted through a spiritual or religious framework. A shift in perception are ancient texts describing UFOs. So, how should we interpret these ancient records? Are they simply religious allegories or spiritual visions? Or is it possible that these texts are describing actual encounters with advanced extraterrestrial beings? The imagery used in ancient descriptions often includes elements of fire, light, and movement, all of which are characteristic of modern UFO sightings. In many modern reports, UFOs are described as glowing orbs of light or fiery objects in the sky, moving in ways that defy the laws of physics. These modern descriptions mirror the ancient accounts of fiery chariots, wheels within wheels, and beings of light. Furthermore, many of the ancient texts that describe these phenomena do so in a way that suggests they were common occurrences for the civilizations that wrote them down. The idea that gods or celestial beings traveled from the sky in fiery chariots or flying ships was widespread. What is striking is that these cultures, separated by thousands of miles and centuries of history, describe remarkably similar phenomena. This raises the possibility that these descriptions were not just religious or mythical, but might have been based on real encounters with beings or objects from the sky. Decoding the symbols, fire, light, and aerial movement. One of the most interesting aspects of the ancient descriptions of UFOs and Seraphim is the symbolism of fire, light, and movement. In both ancient texts and modern UFO sightings, these elements play a crucial role in how the phenomena are described. The use of fire and light as metaphors for divinity is a recurring theme, and it is this symbolism that has led many to wonder whether the UFO sightings of today are related to the fiery seraphim of the Bible. In both biblical accounts and ancient UFO descriptions, fire is a central element. The seraphim are depicted as fiery beings, burning with the intensity of God's holiness, their fire representing divine purity and power. This fiery imagery, however, also closely resembles modern UFO sightings, where fiery lights or glowing objects are frequently reported. Whether described as orbs, spheres of light, or flaming objects, the fire in these modern UFO sightings mirrors the biblical depictions of heavenly beings of flame. In the case of Ezekiel's vision of the fiery chariot, the movement of the wheels within wheels is often seen as a metaphor for the way in which UFOs are reported to move. In modern UFO encounters, observers frequently describe the movement of UFOs as erratic. Objects that can accelerate rapidly, change direction without warning, or move in ways that defy the laws of physics. This matches Ezekiel's description of the wheels that moved in every direction. The idea of movement without restriction, especially in the context of fiery objects, suggests a technological capability far beyond anything available at the time the scriptures were written. Beyond the fire and light, the aerial movement described in these ancient texts also holds significant meaning. In many UFO sightings, the craft are said to travel at incredible speeds, change direction sharply, or even hover in place. These movements are described as unnatural, often leaving observers in awe or fear. Similarly, the seraphim in the Bible are described as being able to move with lightning speed, their wings carrying them across the heavens with supernatural grace. What is most striking about this comparison is the lack of any explanation in ancient texts for these movements. While modern UFO sightings are often dismissed by skeptics as hoaxes or misidentifications of natural phenomena, the ancient texts describe these events as part of a greater spiritual or divine plan. However, the descriptions of aerial movement, fiery appearance, and otherworldly craft in ancient texts and modern UFO sightings seem to point to the same phenomenon: the encounter with something not of this world, the mystery of fire, the link between divine and extraterrestrial. The symbolism of fire in these ancient descriptions is particularly striking. Fire is a purifying force, a symbol of divine presence, and in some cases, a metaphor for advanced technology. In many UFO sightings, the objects are described as emitting intense, fiery light, or a glow that seems almost unnatural. The connection between the fiery seraphim and modern descriptions of UFOs cannot be ignored. Could the fire be symbolic of the advanced technology used by extraterrestrials to travel through space? Could it also represent the purifying or transformative nature of their visit, similar to the way the seraphim purified the air around God's throne in the Bible? As we consider these ancient descriptions, we are faced with a question that bridges the gap between the spiritual and the extraterrestrial. Could the seraphim, the fiery angels, be symbolic of UFOs or extraterrestrial technology wrapped in religious or spiritual language? Could these ancient encounters with otherworldly beings have been the earliest records of extraterrestrial visitation, described in terms that fit the spiritual worldview of the time? The descriptions of fire, light, and aerial movement in the biblical accounts and ancient texts are remarkably consistent with the features of modern UFO sightings. Whether these accounts represent spiritual visions, symbolic stories, or actual encounters with extraterrestrial beings, the similarities between ancient descriptions and contemporary UFO phenomena are undeniable. Could the fiery seraphim be an ancient representation of extraterrestrial beings? Could these divine messengers be simply advanced visitors from another world, misunderstood and interpreted as angels? As we continue to explore these connections, we are left with more questions than answers. The links between ancient UFO sightings, fiery angels, and extraterrestrial encounters demand further exploration. Whether these ancient texts were attempting to describe real UFOs or simply trying to understand the divine through the lens of the supernatural, the connection between the sacred and the extraterrestrial is something that continues to fascinate and provoke thought, even today. The counter-argument: theological views on seraphim as purely spiritual beings. While the theory of seraphim being linked to UFO sightings is intriguing, it is essential to acknowledge the more traditional theological perspectives that view these beings as purely spiritual entities. In many religious and scholarly traditions, the seraphim are not seen as extraterrestrial visitors, but as divine beings that exist entirely within the spiritual realm. According to these perspectives, the fiery nature of the seraphim is symbolic of their closeness to God's holiness, not a description of an advanced spacecraft or alien technology. In Christian theology, the seraphim are considered part of the heavenly host, the order of angels who serve as messengers, worshippers, and agents of God. They are often regarded as the highest rank of angels, closest to God, and their fiery appearance represents the purity and power of the divine. From this viewpoint, the seraphim are spiritual beings created by God, and their fiery presence is a metaphor for the divine light of God that illuminates the heavens. In this context, many theologians argue that the fire surrounding the seraphim is not meant to be taken literally. Rather, it symbolizes their spiritual purification and the glory of God. The seraphim's cry of, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty," is seen as a pure expression of worship and awe before the Creator. For those who adhere to this belief, the seraphim represent a spiritual reality that transcends physical, earthly concerns, and any attempt to link them to UFO sightings is seen as a misinterpretation of their true nature. Spiritual interpretations versus extraterrestrial hypothesis. From a theological standpoint, many scholars and religious leaders maintain that trying to interpret biblical visions as descriptions of extraterrestrial phenomena undermines the deeper spiritual meanings embedded in these texts. The book of Isaiah and Ezekiel are not intended to be scientific accounts, but rather mystical visions designed to convey the majesty and holiness of God. Additionally, the visionary experiences of prophets like Isaiah or Ezekiel are often understood to be spiritual revelations rather than encounters with physical beings from another world. For instance, the fiery seraphim are seen as manifestations of God's presence and power, which are beyond human comprehension. These visions are not literal, but symbolic, meant to convey a profound truth about God's transcendence, purity, and the divine order of the universe. Some theologians argue that interpreting these divine encounters as extraterrestrial encounters distorts the spiritual message and distracts from the core religious teachings. From this perspective, the fire and light associated with the seraphim are deeply rooted in religious symbolism, not in any real-world phenomenon. Thus, spiritual beings and extraterrestrial visitors occupy two very different categories in these theological views. The seraphim belong to the realm of divinity, not alien life, and the suggestion that they might be UFOs is seen by many as a speculative leap that undermines their religious significance. Connecting spirituality and ancient technology. The ancient astronaut theory. Despite the theological counter-arguments, one cannot ignore the possibility that the ancient astronaut theory might offer a compelling bridge between spiritual beliefs and extraterrestrial phenomena. The theory posits that ancient civilizations were visited by advanced extraterrestrial beings, who were often interpreted as gods or angels due to their superior technology and knowledge. This theory has gained traction in modern times, particularly with the discovery of ancient texts, artifacts, and even depictions of flying chariots, beams of light, and extraterrestrial-like beings. Could the seraphim be representations of these ancient extraterrestrial visitors? Could the fiery, glowing descriptions of heavenly chariots and beings of light be records of contact with beings from other planets or galaxies? The ancient astronaut theory suggests that our ancestors may have interacted with beings who had the technology to traverse the cosmos, and who were interpreted as divine beings because of their technological advancements. In this context, the fiery seraphim might be viewed not just as spiritual beings, but as symbolic representations of advanced alien technology. The fire associated with the seraphim could then be interpreted as the energy signature of extraterrestrial spacecraft. Much like modern UFO sightings describe fiery or glowing objects in the sky, the seraphim's fiery appearance could be a metaphor for the advanced propulsion systems of UFOs, or their energy fields. Ancient texts as evidence of extraterrestrial encounters. The ancient astronaut theory suggests that ancient texts, including the Book of Ezekiel and the Book of Enoch, may contain references to extraterrestrial visitations. The chariot of fire in Ezekiel's vision, for example, could be interpreted as a spaceship, and the beings associated with it might be extraterrestrial pilots or astronauts. Similarly, the fiery chariots and beings of light described in various ancient cultures might be records of UFO sightings that were understood as divine manifestations at the time. In the context of this theory, the Seraphim would represent one form of extraterrestrial interaction, beings from the heavens who are described in fiery terms because of their otherworldly nature and advanced technology. The fiery wings and glowing lights associated with the Seraphim could then be seen as symbolic depictions of spaceships that were encountered by ancient peoples. Just as UFOs are often reported as glowing, fiery objects in the sky today, the Seraphim could be viewed as ancient interpretations of the same phenomenon. This interpretation opens up a new perspective on the spiritual visions described in ancient texts. While the Seraphim are traditionally seen as divine messengers, the ancient astronaut theory suggests that these messengers might have been beings with advanced technology, perhaps extraterrestrials visiting Earth in the distant past. The blending of spirituality and technology. What makes the ancient astronaut theory so intriguing is the possibility that spiritual and technological worlds are not as separate as we might think. The Seraphim, as spiritual beings, were often seen as the bridge between the divine and human realms. But what if they were also representing a more practical, extraterrestrial presence? Could it be that the seraphic fire described in the Bible was not just a symbol of divine purity, but also a reflection of advanced alien technology? This blending of spirituality and technology may be key to understanding the profound impact that these ancient visions had on humanity. If ancient peoples were encountering extraterrestrials, these encounters would have been interpreted through the spiritual lens available at the time, leading to the creation of stories and imagery that blend divine and alien motifs. Bridging the gap. The Seraphim as both angels and extraterrestrials. Ultimately, the connection between Seraphim and UFO sightings could be seen as a reflection of the ways in which humanity has interpreted the unknown throughout history. Whether viewed as spiritual beings or as extraterrestrial visitors, the Seraphim represent a profound mystery, one that continues to captivate the imagination and provoke questions about the nature of existence, divinity, and our place in the universe. Could the Seraphim be an ancient form of contact with extraterrestrial life? Could the fiery angels be both spiritual beings and advanced alien technology viewed through the lens of the ancient world? The mystery remains, and as we explore these ancient texts and their connections to modern UFO sightings, we are left to consider that perhaps the truth is far stranger and more complex than we ever imagined. The counter-arguments against viewing the Seraphim as UFOs are rooted in traditional theological views, which see them as spiritual beings with a divine purpose. However, the ancient astronaut theory provides a compelling alternative interpretation, suggesting that ancient descriptions of fiery beings and heavenly chariots might have been based on real extraterrestrial encounters. The potential fusion of spiritual symbolism with advanced alien technology opens the door to new ways of understanding ancient texts and the mysterious beings described within them. Whether we regard the Seraphim as spiritual entities or extraterrestrial visitors, their fiery nature and otherworldly characteristics continue to invite curiosity and speculation. As we continue to study the connections between ancient mythology, religious texts, and modern UFO phenomena, the mystery of the Seraphim remains one of the most fascinating and thought-provoking aspects of human history. The mysteries of the Seraphim and UFO sightings remain unsolved. In our exploration of the Seraphim and their potential connection to UFO sightings in ancient texts, we've uncovered fascinating parallels between the descriptions of fiery beings, heavenly chariots, and extraterrestrial encounters. Whether we view these ancient visions as spiritual manifestations of divine power or as records of early encounters with extraterrestrial visitors, One thing is clear: the mysteries of these phenomena continue to captivate the human imagination. The Seraphim, as fiery angels surrounding the throne of God, have long been seen as symbols of divine purity and holiness. But could these descriptions, so rich in fire and light, also be echoes of an encounter with advanced technology, extraterrestrial crafts visiting Earth? The ancient texts, from the book of Isaiah to the book of Enoch, hint at celestial phenomena that might resemble modern UFO sightings, where fiery lights and strange movements in the sky defy earthly logic. The theological viewpoint holds that the Seraphim are divine beings, purely spiritual in nature, representing God's power and glory. For many, to link these beings to extraterrestrials undermines their sacred purpose. However, the rise of the ancient astronaut theory invites us to reconsider these ancient visions through the lens of potential extraterrestrial contact. Visitors from the heavens who might have been mistaken for divine beings due to their advanced technology. As we look to the future, the mystery remains. Were the Seraphim simply symbolic representations of the divine, or were they an early record of UFO sightings? And if the ancient world was truly witnessing extraterrestrial phenomena, does this reshape our understanding of human history and our place in the universe? While the connection between Seraphim and UFOs might never be fully resolved, one thing is certain: these ancient accounts, whether spiritual or extraterrestrial in nature, continue to spark our curiosity. The possibility that humanity's ancestors encountered beings from beyond our world challenges us to rethink not only the nature of the divine, but also the very fabric of reality itself. As we continue to explore the skies and uncover the mysteries of the universe, the story of the Seraphim and the search for extraterrestrial life remain intertwined. And perhaps one day, we will uncover the truth that lies hidden in the stars.